Dr. Sharon Saline, and welcome to our Friday Facebook Live. I'm really happy to be here. And, this is such an important topic, particularly at this time of year, around mid-year in school, when kids are receiving their report cards, and probably there are a number of issues for families. I'm trying to figure out how to post this on my own website, but I'm not succeeding at that. So the first thing that I'm going to do, though, is put in here into the chat is a downloadable for you on managing homework with ADHD. So hopefully that will be helpful. And I'm looking in the settings. Yep, I can't really figure out how to post it to my own page. So if you're here, please introduce yourself, say hi, tell me where you're from as people arrive. It'd be great to welcome you. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, tell me who you are and where you're from. Can you hear me? Hopefully you can. Great. Susan, hi, from now sunny California. Oh, yeah, you've had a lot of rain. You've had a lot of rain over there. David from New Orleans, welcome. Tanya from Seattle, welcome. So glad you're all here. Let's see, Barb from Texas, Marion from Lindenhurst, Long Island, Lara from Abu Dhabi. Hi, Cara from Lancaster, PA. Great, and Paola from Orlando. It's wonderful to have you. Martha from Denver. Welcome, welcome, everybody. It's great that you're here. I'm going to get started today, and I think I'd like to talk a little bit about oh, hi, Lauren from the Netherlands. Great to have you. I'd like to talk a little bit about, about report cards and what they mean to your child or teen, and that, sometimes, we know that report cards are like a concrete demonstration of what's working well at school and what isn't. And what happens is that we all sort of interpret these report cards, particularly parents, as an evaluation of our child's performance and sometimes their intelligence and where they're falling short. But we can also think about them as an opportunity for investigating and improving our children's school experience. Sasha, age 17, says to me, I hate it when teachers say you have so much potential. It's a shame you can't unlock it to be more disciplined. Logan, age 11, told me, it feels bad. I really don't want to disappoint my parents, but I frustrate them a lot, like with school, because it's harder for me. So shame from repeated failures or perceived failures can push children or teens or even adults with ADHD to hide or deny their mistakes or their report cards and lead them to say negative statements to themselves like I'm stupid or I'm not good enough. And shame also will contribute to any kind of oppositional behavior that you'll see in response to the report card. So how, as adults, we parents respond to these report cards is really crucial, because we don't want to shame our kids. We want to convey that we believe in them and that we understand that school is challenging, and we also want to manage our own feelings, because we may be feeling sad or frustrated or angry, and we don't know exactly what to do. You may have advocated for your child a lot at school and still feel like you're not getting what you want from the school. So the first thing that we want to do is manage our own reactions to the report cards separately. So whatever your thoughts or feelings are, can you address these privately before you speak to your child or teen? Just because the report card has arrived in your hand or in your email doesn't mean that you need to respond right away. because our kids have really good radar and can pick up on what's going on with us, we want to take that time to manage ourselves so that they're not sensing our frustration or disappointment and reacting to that with anger and blowback, or shame and sadness, but rather with a kind of thoughtfulness. So we want to take time and space that you need to regulate yourself and reflect on how you want to approach the situation. Because you really are your child's best ally. And often what our children experience from us is that we're their top critics. In fact, kids have probably judged themselves harshly enough for the both of you. They know what a good report card is, and they know what a report card that doesn't make them feel very good is. And so we want to give them space to manage their own reaction rather than laying our reaction on them so quickly. So I guess I'd like to start by asking you, how many of you have kids who are struggling right now in school, and what are some of those struggles? Let's put that in the chat. How many of you have kids who are struggling at school, and what are some of the struggles? Now, once you're settled, when you've settled yourself, what you want to follow, I have 5 tips for you today. The first thing is to listen first and ask questions later. So your child or teen with complex ADHD, which to me means ADHD and friends, whether it's anxiety or depression or a learning disability or being on the spectrum or twice exceptional, they're going to feel anxious about discussing their report card with you if it's not the way they would like it, or sharing it with you. And so whether or not they show it to you or they try to hide it, your kids want your respect, right? They want your approval and your love. As Ross Greene says, it's better to do well than not to do well. So we want to start by trying to relieve some of their anxiety about seeing their report card by acknowledging that, you're here to try to make things better together. It's a collaborative approach. And then set aside some time when emotions are a little bit cooler, if your child is quite activated and upset about the report card, to talk about it at a different time, perhaps a different day. Use conversational openers such as what, when, and how instead of why, because they may not know the answer to why. But when we start with what has been going on in your classroom that's been difficult for you, how is your teacher responding when you tell him or her that you're struggling? How are you responding when you're struggling? It opens up the conversation in a very different way. The next step would be reflecting back what you hear so they feel listened to. Okay, so what I heard you say is this, or it sounds like blah, blah, blah. Because your compassion about the challenges that they experience at school, instead of your judgment and your frustration, is going to foster the essential connections that kids need with their primary caregivers or parents. So let's look and see what's going on with some of your kids in the chat. Thank you so much for your comments. Susan says, progress, not perfection. Always, Susan. Thank you so much. Marion, me focusing and rushing through assignments. I see. So you're a student yourself. That's wonderful. Let's see. Work refusal. Can't grade what isn't done. Yes. So a lot of kids with ADHD really have trouble doing things they don't like to do. In fact, many people with ADHD have trouble with that, whether you're a child or teen or an adult. And so the homework assignment may be something that just isn't appealing. It's not easy. It's not that interesting. You don't care about it. So you don't want to do the work. And if the work refusal is occurring in school, then it would seem to me that a meeting with the school is in order, because your child needs more support than they're receiving. When kids are refusing work, there's a reason for it. And we need to sort of understand what that reason is, unpack it a bit, and then you know, put in interventions and supports that will assist them. Tanya says, my 15-year-old son is in 9th grade, struggles with all executive functioning challenges, especially activation, focus, and memory areas. Won't work on homework when at home either. Screen time is his priority. So when kids with ADHD or teens with ADHD come home, their brain is tired. You know, they've spent all day really focusing hard on holding it together in school and trying to pay attention and do what they're told in the midst of, you know, many distractions, perhaps, you know, kind of struggling with hyperactivity or impulsivity. And so when they come home, they just don't have it in them to do a lot of homework. And if that's the case for your child, you know, I would want to know, is your child receiving support services at school where homework can be done in school so the child can come home and not have to do homework? Or is there a way, like one of my clients, their son said, I will wake up at 6, I will do my homework before school, and then when I come home from school, no homework. This child took a focus pill, and basically that was how it worked in the family. He woke up at 6, took his medication, and from 6:30 to 7:30 did homework, ate a little breakfast along with it, and then went to school. School started at 8 for this child. So that was actually his idea, and his parents, particularly his mother, was willing to try it to see what happened. And what happened was he kind of bought into the program in a different way and was able to do what he needed to do. It just had to be on his own time. Let's see, Barb says, completing assignments. It would be great if they completed them on time. I would like them to actually work on them. So that's an interesting situation. Sometimes what helps kids with ADHD is family work time, where you're sitting at the table doing some of your own stuff and they're sitting at the table doing some of their own stuff. So it's not so much of I have to do this all by myself when other things are happening in the house that I want to do, or I'm in my room alone and there's distractions. And then you can be available to assist. You can also be available to check in to see if your child is actually, you know, doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing, or, you know, on YouTube. Kasia, welcome. My son's 13, and his biggest struggle is his homework, always overwhelmed with the amount of it. Right, and so, you know, I don't know how it is in your country, but, you know, a lot of times the amount of homework that's given to kids with ADHD is more than they can actually accomplish. And so we want to talk with the school about adjusting the homework. So instead of having to do 20 math problems, maybe they could do 12 math problems, and that fits with their learning needs and their cognitive capacity. Because if there's so much homework and your son isn't getting it done, then he's just going to start to feel bad about himself and refuse to do the work at all. Lauren, my 14-year-old just left the school. Hard time at school going ahead with the rules. So is he being homeschooled? How are you handling school with your education with your son right now? Martha, doing all the work and forgetting to turn it in on time. So in situations where kids do the work and they forget to turn it in, it can be very helpful to have time when homework is finished to sit with your child and watch them turn it in. And a lot of teenagers will be like, I don't need you, you know, over my shoulder, telling me what to do. And you can make an agreement and say, this is an experiment. I'm going to sit with you and just check that you've turned your work in, or watch you turn your work in, and we're going to see if that helps you turn your work in more often, because you're doing the work but you're not getting the credit for it. And I understand, you know, you're finished with this, you're moving on to the next thing, you forget to turn it in. That happens to people. So let's see what we could create together as a solution. And you ask your child what they think, and they might say, oh, I'll just remember, I'll do a better job. And you can come back and say, I don't think that actually has been working. So in this case, I'd like to suggest that I'm around when you turn your work in, or you show me with your computer that you've turned your assignments in, something like that. And then they can get an incentive or a little bonus, some bonus points towards something they want as a result of cooperating with the plan. Marion, you're not a student. Okay, thank you. Was talking about my son. I give my 13-year-old time to unwind from school for an hour and 45 minutes or 45 minutes, and then he does his homework, but he won't let me help him study. So that's okay. This is his issue. He wants to unwind, and then he does his homework, which is fantastic. You're 2/3 of the way there. And he doesn't want help studying. So if he doesn't want help studying, that's okay, because his teachers are going to see where his challenges are and where he really grasps the material and is thriving. If he needs help studying, he might respond better to someone who is not you. And that could be a tutor that he meets with once a week, or it could be someone who's older than your child. So one of the things I know in my town at our local high school, there's an honor society, and the honor society students have to collect community service hours, and some of those community service hours can be tutoring or working with younger students. So that might be something to look into. Or maybe your local YMCA or Boys and Girls Club has some homework clubs or programs that would be helpful. Tanya, yes, he's an academic lab, as well as most of his teachers give the kids time to complete work in class. He struggles with completing work in both cases. He has many missing assignments, so ends up picking and choosing the ones he wants to do at the last minute. So Tanya, if he's in academic lab and his teachers give kids time to complete the work in class, he obviously needs a little bit more support. Particularly with organizing his work, with breaking it down, with prioritizing, and he may need special time to do that, perhaps in the beginning of the week when he's looking forward at what's coming next. Marion, it's a distraction for him. I see. So being next to him is a distraction for him. Right. So I'm wondering, what about being next to him is distracting for him? Can you tell me about that? Perhaps you could be in a nearby room instead of right next to him, but still be able to be in the vicinity. Yvonne, oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the second tip. So the first tip was listen first, ask questions later. The second tip is set realistic goals for the next quarter or trimester with your child and with someone from the school. So it's a collaborative meeting. So together, explore realistic goals for the next term. Ask them, what hopes do you have for yourself? What types of support is useful to you or has been useful to you in the past, and what do you think would help you right now? Where could they benefit from more aid than they're receiving? You can share your hopes as well and remind them of some of their capabilities and previous successes in the school area. If your child feels disliked by a teacher or they're not receiving mandated accommodations, then definitely arrange a meeting at school with the guidance counselor, social worker, psychologist, principal to discuss that's very funny, to discuss your concerns and find a doable solution. So we're going to try to set realistic goals for this quarter, starting with what is important to your child or teen that they want to do, and then maybe adding in some hopes that you have for them also, and coming up with a middle ground of what you want and what they want, so that the plan includes everything. I'm curious, have any of you had conversations with your kids about goals for the next term or the trimester, and what kinds of plans or answers have you received? So what kind of goals have you worked on together as a family to help your kids in this coming semester? The third thing that we want to do, so we basically listen first and talk second. We set realistic goals for the next quarter or trimester, and then we make sure that adequate support is in place. If your child or teen does not already have mandated supports at school, and in the United States, these would be 504 or IEP and or behavioral plans, then request a team meeting or fill out the necessary forms at your school or at the district office to get this process started. Low grades in school and struggle to do homework and complete and turn in assignments are strong signals that something is up with your child and it's time to address it right now. One of the toughest things for alternative learners is repeated school difficulties, academic, social, behavioral, and these lead to negative self-esteem and a failure mentality over time that we, of course, want to avoid. So if a support plan is in place and your child is still struggling as evidenced by their report card, then the support plan is not working effectively and we need to go back to the drawing board. So why isn't it working better? That's a meeting for the team. In both cases, whether you're starting the process or you're in a process, invite your child to participate for some portion of the meeting. The adults at school will benefit from hearing what they have to say. So let's see. Marion Goldman sounds good. Yes, he tells me I don't know. Okay. Yes, he's motivated to finish off strong and get ready for high school. Great. So he doesn't know. So Marion, in your situation, what we want to do is ask questions that would help him figure it out. So specific questions. Does it work if someone sits next to you? We kind of know the answer to that, but we would want to know, like, if your support person is sitting next to you, does that help? Does it help? Is it useful when people sit with you to break down your assignments so you can spread them out over the course of the week? Very specific kinds of questions. And it might mean meeting with the academic support teacher to really have a brainstorm and then figure out what could be different. Great. I'm glad you like that. Great idea to have the child as part of the team. It's so interesting to me because even young children, first graders, have some idea of what they think is working in school and what isn't. But we often don't ask them to come to the meeting. And I think that what we want to do is, by asking them to come to the meeting, is it generates a sense from them that we respect their opinion, that we want their participation. And so I really want to encourage you to figure out a way that your child, whatever age they are, can come to a meeting to talk a little bit about their experience. Tanya, we've included in the IEP discussion, and he's completely disengaged to what to participate. So, he may not be ready yet to say anything, because we know that kids with ADHD mature more slowly, sometimes up to 3 years behind neurotypical peers. And your child, I believe you said, was 13. And so he's, in some ways, in this way, might be more like a 10-year-old. And it sounds like he's kind of angry and upset that he has to deal with this at all. And he doesn't want to participate when we're talking about putting the plan together that will help him. And, my guess is he might feel some shame. He might not believe that any plan is actually going to help him. And, oh, he's 15. Okay, thank you. And he may feel some shame. So he's more like 11 or 12. So he may feel some shame. He may feel like it's a hopeless situation. He's lost the ability to believe in himself. So it is helpful. He doesn't think he has any issues, even though we've had him evaluated twice. And so right now he's living in denial. And, that's what he needs to do for himself. but, kind of the proof is in the pudding. So if he's not turning in his work, then actually he's showing us with his behavior that he does have some issues, and those issues need to be attended to. And I would come back with a child like this to things that you're observing, not interpretations or judgments, but what you're noticing, what you're seeing, what kinds of things are happening, what kinds of consequences there are. Yvonne, during ARD meetings at my grandson's school, they make the student part of the meetings. This helps them, makes them part of their primary responsibility. I agree. He has even asked questions himself. That's fantastic, Yvonne. I'm so glad to hear that. They're really on their ball. Tanya, yes. Okay, good. I'm glad that what I'm saying is helping, because I think it's really important to remember that shame is like a blanket over a kid who doesn't want to believe that they're different, who doesn't like that their brain is wired in a way that they don't feel comfortable with, or they feel like they're isolated from peers. So we really want to just give him time and space. Marion, I'm afraid that if he does join the meeting, he's going to shut down. So that's a good question. I mean, that's a good point, but we want him to join a part of the meeting. We don't need him to be in the whole meeting where we're talking about him, and particularly if you're talking about him in the third person. That's not going to be very helpful. We want him to join to actually engage in conversation about what's working, what isn't working, and what could be working better. Right? That is what we want to hear from our kids. And if they have some questions about school or about the support services that they're receiving, or what is going on in their cognitive profile, that's up to you to share how much. But remember that your child can't process a lot of this information. It's just cognitively possibly above their head. And secondly, if they're in a meeting with other people, they may not be able to process it. So we want to keep the role of your child in a meeting to something specific and relatively minimal. When kids get older, and sometimes at age 15, but 16, 17, 18 and beyond, they absolutely can spend a little bit longer in the meeting, but it's important to remember that talking about a child in the third person in front of a child feels terrible to a kid. In fact, talking about anybody in the third person in front of them doesn't feel very good. So we want to really engage them. Well, that's fine. He doesn't have to participate, Tanya. He can come and just listen for the part of the meeting that's appropriate, so that the symbolism is there. He may participate next year, but we have the structure set up for him. Okay. So what is the fourth tip? So our 3 tips have been listen first, ask questions after, set realistic goals for the next quarter or trimester, and make sure adequate support is in place. The 4th tip is to avoid punishments and consider logical consequences. So a lot of times when kids aren't doing well, and it's often, it could be screen related, or they're disrespectful in their words and their actions, parents think about what they can take away from their child as a punishment. And that's true for report cards that are disappointing too. But we want to flip it around and instead focus on incentives and logical consequences. Punishments have been found not to be effective because they don't teach any skills. We are all about teaching skills to kids who have ADHD and other aspects of neurodivergence. So your child or teen with ADHD, and often more, needs to learn effective executive functioning skills for tasks related to daily living, but also for tasks related to school, which is their job. Okay, so we want to teach them that the have-tos precede the want-tos, as they will eventually have to do this for themselves when they're older. We do this, right? We might do the unpleasant task first, like taking out the trash, and then we might have a cup of tea with a cookie. So we want to teach our kids to do the same. So that means that if they do the stuff that needs to be done first, they can earn the fun stuff that comes after. If they don't do the stuff that needs to get done, then they don't earn the privilege of that stuff. This gives them more control over the outcome and builds autonomy and choice simultaneously. This attitude lies at the heart of using logical consequences. So that means that instead of your kid goes out and it's raining and there's no raincoat and they get wet, that's a natural consequence. A logical consequence is you get 30 minutes of screen time every day. When you finish your homework and you turn it in, you can have another hour. But I need to check to see that you've turned it in. That's a logical consequence and an earned privilege. And so if your child basically has their screen time for 30 minutes, doesn't complete their homework, and doesn't show you that they've turned it in, they don't get that carrot, that bonus. We want to work with their drive for the desired golden prize. And when you work together to establish motivating incentives, so you talk with them about things that they want to earn, that they want to do, and not necessarily give all the screen away without having them earn anything, for example, then when you use some of the screen time as an incentive so that they're able to focus and apply attention, sustained attention, to the things that they need to do because they know there's something they want at the other side. I was talking to a family this week, and their son was really having a lot of trouble getting up from school, and he's having trouble getting up for school because he doesn't really like his peer group, and some of the girls in the group are nasty. But when they go skiing on the weekend, he has no trouble getting up for the ski program. That's easy for him because he loves it. So that's what I'm talking about. Kids can motivate themselves for things that matter to them. So we have to put the thing that matters to them after the thing that they need to do. So number 4 in the tips is avoid punishments and consider logical consequences. Marion says, my son has ODD toward me only. He won't even wash the dishes, even after showing me how. You showing him how. I told him that he used to think he's going to have to learn when he gets older and he's on his own, but he starts to call me names and shuts down. Okay, so Marion, the thing is that when he gets older, could basically be in a completely different universe. He's in now. The ADHD brain is a now, not now brain. So he's going to push back at you because you're making him do things that he doesn't want to do. So for your son, particularly when there's oppositional defiant disorder part of it, he has it to you only because there's something going on in your relationship where he feels like he needs to be oppositional and push back. So I don't know if you are in any sort of family counseling. That might be something that can be useful. Research has found that treatment for oppositional defiant disorder can include medication, but also parent-child work, therapeutic work and cognitive work, and that with that assistance, that ODD can sort of resolve within up to 2 years. So I think it's important to find out why he's so angry at you and what you could do that might shift that. I don't know the particulars of your situation, but a lot of times when kids are oppositional with parents but fine at school, then there's something in the dynamic at home that is setting them off, and we want to really kind of unpack that. Carrie, the school has said that they think natural consequences will kick in when he's in middle school next year in reference to him not completing his classwork now. So I'm going to politely disagree. I'm going to disagree, Carrie, because natural consequences mean he's going to fail. So I'm curious why the school is opting out of assisting him in doing what he needs to do, or finding out why he can't do the work. A lot of times kids with ADHD can't do the work because it's too much. they look at it and it's like Mount Everest. I'm just going to avoid it. That's what avoidance procrastination is. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I don't think I can, finish it, so I'm going to give up before I try. So the school may not be breaking the homework, the classwork down or the homework down into small enough pieces. And a small enough piece means that your child can start. That's what a small enough piece is. So some kids want to do 15 minutes of math. Some kids need to do math, 5 problems and then take a break. How are they instituting? How long can your child concentrate for? When do they need a break? What kind of break are they getting? These are all things that are up for discussion. And I don't agree that he should get to middle school and experience natural consequences, i.e. failure. Right now, in primary school and elementary school is when he actually needs to learn some of these skills so that he can apply them in middle school. Marion, okay, changed medication 3 times. Right, so it's about the medication, but it's also about the dynamic between the two of you and whoever else lives in your house. And so we want to try to shift that dynamic. Many times in families, whether the families have ADHD or not, there are rigid roles that people are playing in the family, and that causes conflict. We want to have, one child might be, the cooperative, easygoing child. One child might be, the more problematic, in-your-face kind of child. A third child might just be, I only want to be with my friends. I'm going to do what I need to do so I can leave the house. It doesn't matter. And parents, one might be the good cop, one might be the bad cop. So we want to really kind of tease these out so we can understand, because ideally we would want everybody to have some flexibility in their roles. Sometimes, Mom, you're the good cop. Sometimes, Mom, you're really not. You're not. And we want everyone to have that opportunity, because that helps us evolve as adults into having a fuller sense of ourselves. Just him and I. Okay, he goes to his father's house a few times a week. So in a divorced family with ADHD, and maybe this is something we can talk about at some other time, a lot of times the rules are not the same at the other parent's house. And so ideally what we would want is for you and and his father to get together with a neutral party to figure out how you can have similar structures at both houses. So you're not always, in the doghouse because you're setting up structure and following it. I've worked with a number of families in these situations, and it really helps the kids when there's some similar structure. It doesn't have to be the same thing at each house, but that there are chores at each house. There's we agree on an amount of screen time that's a baseline, and then there can be earned things, those kinds of things. Tanya, we've been working with different meds for 5+ years and haven't found the right fit. Literally, I've tried them all. I hear this from parents, Tanya. It's so tough. He's now at the age that he can, quote, decide whether he will take it, and has decided at the beginning of the year he wasn't going to take it, even though we and his doctor said you need to have a plan of what you'll do if you're not going to take meds. We feel there's some improvement with meds, but he refuses it now. He doesn't have a plan in place, so things are not going well at all. So again, Tanya, I would recommend in your situation that some counseling would be in order, either for him individually or some combination of him individually and you and your partner, because he's dug himself in, and there's a certain kind of resistance to kind of admitting that he needs the help and then receiving the help and doing the work. So, it sounds like, finding the right counselor would be helpful. And a lot of times when I work with adolescents, I do something that's a blended a therapy where I'll see the child several times, and then we'll have a family session. And then I'll see the child and we'll have a family session, or I might meet alone with the parents. But I don't tell the parents certain things that the child tells me without asking the child if I can tell the parents. It's important that we want, as therapists, that we encourage and coach our clients to say things to the parents themselves, because therapy is 1 out of like 168 hours in a week. So we want to build tools for family conversations that are honest and heartfelt. His father and grandmother don't co-parent with me. They won't agree to it. So this is a very, very difficult situation for you, Marion, and I hope that you have some support. You know, one thing that can be helpful in situations like this when the father and grandmother don't co-parent with you is to talk to the school about having some school meetings with a school counselor, because they might have some authority and an ability to work with the situation, because you know, it's possible the father and grandmother want him to do well at school, so they might be more motivated to go there. Okay. If you didn't have a good connection, find someone else. You know, I think actually if you go to my website, I have an article on how to find the right therapist. So check that out. And again, here's the downloadable for today. All right, let's go to our 5th tip for dealing with a disappointing report card, and this is setting up an effective routine for studying at home. Good study habits go beyond doing homework at a specific time. The best way, the surest way to encounter your ADHD child's forgetfulness, inconsistency, or difficulty with focusing on homework is by setting up a routine of study habits in a quiet study place. So every day you study at this place for this amount of time. You study, you take a break. You study, you take a break. And you decide in advance, what are those breaks? How long are those breaks? And then when you've done a couple of those study periods, you can earn your bonus. What is that bonus? Is it that extra screen time? Is it playing cards with you? Is it, you know, going out and shooting hoops with some kids in the neighborhood? What is that extra incentive? It has to be an activity that they enjoy. Predictability is one of the key aspects, the key tools in countering procrastination. So when your child has a daily routine, they'll have fewer opportunities to, you know, do other things instead of the thing that they need to do. So again, we're talking about a collaborative approach that will be effective. So together, talk about, you know, what your level of involvement in their homework needs to be and what they're showing you in their behavior or the results of their homework that indicate that other choices would be worthwhile. What is the reality of what's really getting done and turned in versus where you might need to chip in a little bit? Understand your child's study patterns. Talk to the teacher at school if you can, if there's one teacher or the guidance counselor or someone who knows your child at school. And then talk with your kids. Like, what parts of homework are tolerable? Should they do those first to kind of feel like they're on a roll, and then do something they don't like so much, and then something that's okay enough? You know, what subjects would fit in those categories? Then you can brainstorm a plan together and expect to tweak it along the way. Behavior therapy. So cognitive behavior therapy, it's not just behavioral therapy, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, is very helpful for kids and parents, and it's helpful throughout the age span, so it can be useful. And I think it really works well when it's combined with with insight-oriented therapy as well, because, you know, we want to look at what the behavior is and how to change the behavior, but we also want to look at some of the emotions that go along with the behaviors and the beliefs, of course. So, you know, there's thinking, there's emotion, there's action, and all of these things come together in how we live every day. And all of those things need to be addressed in the process of of successful and effective therapy. So I'm going to take one or two more comments or questions. Do any of you have specific questions that you haven't asked? Again, I've talked about 5 specific ways to assist your kids with homework. And I would be very happy to answer another question or two before we stop. Does anyone have a question or comment they would like to make? I don't see anything. You know, as kids enter in adolescence, they're starting to push away from family. That's how they're trying to figure out who they are as individuals. So we want as parents to give them space to do that, appropriate space in appropriate ways. So insight-oriented therapy would be what we consider more traditional therapies, what's often called psychodynamic therapy. It can involve mindfulness. It can be acceptance and commitment therapy. It can be family therapy. So, which helps us, share parts of ourselves, as well as attempting to, create interventions, mutual interventions that shift cognition and behavior. Tanya, could you suggest how to get him to work on a routine when he's been getting all of these things that would be considered a privilege and reward? So here's the kicker, and we can't go into this too much today, but that would have to shift. Like, you would have to basically say, you know what, we're having this level of conflict at home and these difficulties, so we're going to change. I want to change how we're doing things. So you'll have 1 hour of screen time guaranteed every day, a reward or whatever it is that your child likes. And then they'll have a whole 1 hour. Oh my God, that's nothing. I need more than that. I need 4 hours. And you can say, that's fine. You can earn another hour and a half when you complete this and this. And they'll say, that's not fair, I hate you, or whatever it is they might say. And you'll say, you know what? I know it doesn't seem fair, but my job as your parent is to help you become an independent, organized, dependable adult. And this is how we're going to do that, because school is where you learn these skills. How you do your homework, how you show up, how you turn it in. So we're going to just tweak things a little bit to see if that helps and make a shift. So it's 100% not fair. You're right. It's not fair. But I am concerned and responsible for you making it to 18, or when you become an adult, which is 18 generally, and how you're going to be able to manage your own affairs effectively. And the way you do that is by putting the have-tos before the want-tos. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was great to talk with you. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks. Bye.